mind about the religion. This is a religious free area, which is good news. I declare this officially a religious free area. Unfortunately, it appears to be also an audience free area at this very moment. And that is a great opportunity for anybody to occupy this space, because it's one of the few spaces you can actually relax, not listen to a load of religious rhetoric. Generally speaking, it's about life really. The fact that when you consider how you live and what you're doing in life, you spend most of your time working, don't you? So I could never get the job I wanted at the time, for some reason or another, which is a shame. Ended up in the IT industry, something I'm fascinated in. Really, but I always say to people, if you're fascinated in something, don't study it and don't do it as a job, because you have to work to deadlines and it becomes a bit boring in actual fact, and it mars it. But those people drag themselves up in the morning, put themselves into their car, drive to work half asleep, regretting it. When they get there, they sign up at 9 o'clock to contract, work to contract until 5 o'clock, drive another couple of hours home, and then say hello to the wife. If it's a good day, there will be time for a little argument before you sit and watch television, and if there's not time to sneak off to the pub, go to bed, because you know you've got to get up early next morning, yet again to jump in the car and do the same thing. Now you're going to do it 5 days a week, and young people are usually quite miffed by the time they've done their third week at work. A, they realise why they call it work, and B, they realise that it's probably a rerun until they're about to retire, or that's their fear. Optimistic ones think otherwise, and good luck to them. Nowadays, of course, things have changed from when I was young. Work isn't so easy to get, and there's a good reason for this. One of the reasons is that, of course, when you go to work, you pay tax. And tax is quite handy from the government's point of view, because it can hand it out to all those non-government organisations that they create to do exactly what they want to do that will be entirely illegal otherwise. And so they need your money, long and short of it. Now, at one time, of course, men worked and women didn't, because you needed manual workers. Women could work, I guess, but they just wouldn't last very long. Certainly later on, work came along that was more suitable to women in the mills, when they needed small people to run around and risk their lives equally as badly, in which case they had work. But I never hear, for instance, feminists boasting about how they used to have work in the mills, and yet they're always saying how women were stuck at home and oppressed by men who went out to work. But if you look at history, it's a load of old nonsense, because the truth is ordinary women and men worked like hard all the time to keep the life and soul together. That's the way it was. It's the Industrial Revolution. Post-Industrial Revolution, some good news came about, and that is that the manual labour was no longer required, and we could actually have machines that do it for us. The machines use IT to control it, and IT was controlled by keyboards often, but of course other things too. And women could also go to work and compete in the workplace, which you'd think is terrific, because we've got an expanding economy, all this new stuff to do. We can go out and we can earn twice the amount of money per family if both go to work. And of course, this was how it's seen. But at the same time, this was about the 60s, of course, feminism came in. The idea of feminism is, one of the ideas, is to get more tax. How can that be? Well, it's easy. You just say to the women, look, you're stuck at home, you're held there by the patriarchy who are oppressing you, and therefore you must demand your freedom and liberty, and also you must go via the government to get the rights to go out and compete with a man for a job if you are qualified to do so. And I've never heard anyone complain about that. Well, the good news is that we have more educated people that are more capable en masse to produce stuff. The bad news is, of course, when you're in the workplace, the boss realises he can actually pay people half the amount, at least, because to hold one household, you've got the man and the woman now both at work. You can pay them half the amount, you have the same amount per household. But there is a gotcha here, and the feminists obviously knew what they were talking about, but certainly the women that are embroiled, and by the way, when I'm an anti-feminist, that doesn't mean I'm anti-female. Feminism is a political ideology, and it's dragged men and women in, and you'd be surprised how many men attend here that say they are feminists, which is quite reasonable because it's political ideology. Yeah? You understand that? Oh, right. Oh, not often you do. The one woman I've got already knows. How can I convert anyone? Anyway, so both go out to work, both pay tax, but both can't have a family, can they? A woman wants to have a child. And how can she look after the child and earn half the wage to keep the house going? Because nowadays, I do notice, you'll get two young people, both university qualified, maybe they've got higher education, they find themselves in the workplace, and of course the workplace requires you to work. That's 8 hours a day. And they don't have time to do other things, like mow the lawn, unless you do it at weekends, walk the dogs if you want. I mean, you're affluent people, two yuppies as I used to call them out at work. And of course, if they have children, they can't afford the time to look after children, so they have to pay someone else to look after your own children. You actually wave goodbye to your family. And one of the claims are, which I believe, that feminism comes from cultural Marxism, and the idea is to take away, destroy the culture of the West, and one of the best ways to destroy culture is to destroy the family. Family is not considered to be a helpful and strong unit. I've often had young girls here that would never dream of having a child. They say things like this. I've had several say this, not today. So I'm not going to have any children because they think that makes a hero of a woman, because otherwise they've been somehow, I guess, raped by a man. I don't know. It's awful. And they say I'm going to adopt. And I know what they've got in their mind. I know it's adopt somewhere from Asia or Africa, you know, because it's a way of becoming a hero. And sure enough, you can do that. I'm sure there's loads of children here that need someone to look after them. But I'm not quite sure if that attitude is right. Because the truth is, when you have a child, it's a major investment, obviously, for a woman. And for a man, actually, but more so of a woman. You've got your health at stake, haven't you? You're walking around, and it's great, isn't it? Oh, I'm pregnant. Oh, lovely, you know, congratulations, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then it gets bigger and bigger, isn't it? And you're walking around like this, and at work, it's more difficult, and nobody knows really how you feel. Certainly a man doesn't, because we don't experience this, obviously. It gets bigger and bigger. I've got no, how many children have I got? What's that got to do with this speech?
I'm pregnant because I haven't got any. I'm 6
Oh, don't take that as that. Well, don't take it as I haven't got any. No, what are you going? Well, why have you taken it that I haven't got any? Well, don't take that. Don't do that. You're making an assumption and then give me a response according to your assumption. That's ridiculous. What argument is that? I'm a crazy man. I don't mind questions, by the way. That's stupid. I'll assume that you're the biggest pig on earth. Why are you such a bastard? What can you do when you get questions like that? Anyway, but don't be afraid to ask questions. I won't, honestly. But anyway, the last 2 months of pregnancy, especially with small. My ex-wife she's Chinese actually. She's about your height. I thought she was going to explode. Anyway, we end up going by giving birth because he's wrong. I've got 2 boys. He didn't like to say it at the time. And give birth, it's risky, isn't it? There's hemorrhage, all this kind of stuff. You have to lay up in bed for an awful long time afterwards. It feels like the bottom of your body's sort of exploding. And it's a big major investment. And you what's more at that time you need looking after. Isn't that true? Absolutely. And so what do you need? Well, years ago, before we had the pill, before the 60s, of course, pregnancy was an inevitability, wasn't it? In fact, it was an inevitability whether you were married or not. I guess the idea, the stigma of not being married actually put it off for a while, but the truth is the biological urges to get together are quite strong. And so you'd need someone to look after you. Now, it doesn't matter who that is to look after you, does it? It can be male or female, but you can't be out doing stuff when you're recovering. I mean, as I understand it in some places, in the Far East, how long, traditionally in the Far East, how long in bed after you had a baby, 50 years ago? 1 month, yeah, a long time. Nowadays, if you've seen them nowadays, they say, oh, I'm pregnant, So, when are you having the baby? Oh, next week, but then I'm going straight back to work, because I'm a real hero.
I'll tell you about the Far East in Hong Kong. My relatives from Hong Kong, the grandmother, we said, how did you look after your children? And they said, they had
Get on,
4
get on.
children. And they said we haven't got the faintest idea how to look after children. We get the Filipino maids or the Indonesian maids to do it.
Oh, well,
They've
fair
got
enough.
no idea.
Yeah, well, maybe that's. I don't know what the reason for that. Do you know the reason for that? Were they both at work or something? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
See, that's the
Chinese
usual thing.
mentality is
Stop,
make
stop,
money,
stop.
money,
Yeah.
and get a maid in
Don't
to do the
blame
work.
them. Don't blame them for it. That may be true. I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying I don't know it's true personally.
No.
You know, because we don't know much. If it occurred to you, you don't know much. Joe, what do you know? Tell me something you know. Do you know what's happening in the Far East with the wars and stuff like that? Do you know what about Trump? Do you know
No,
what's
I
going
know
on?
his speeches he made.
Yeah,
I know his
But you
speeches
don't
he
know.
made.
Wait, give us a break.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, we don't know much. All we know is what we know from each other. Most people get their information from the papers, don't they, and the news and stuff like that. When I say to people, well, do you believe stuff you read in the paper? They'll go, no. But I say, well, that's kind of weird, isn't it? That's kind of weird, isn't it? You don't believe what you read in the papers. You don't trust it. You believe in it. Because we don't know much at all. And be careful about this, because people think they know things. I'll give you an example of this one. I'll get back to it in a minute. It's something that a lot of people believe. I know they don't know. How many here believe that women are paid less than men for doing the same job? How many people believe that's true? Do you believe that's true? Women paid less. Do you believe it's true? Be brave. Honestly,
I think it.
you think it's true.
I think it's true.
You're true. Now, why do you think it's true? There's three of you. Can each of you? I want a lot of contribution back.
Well,
Keep it short, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much for that contribution. Now, Amber, why do you think that's true? Speak up. Be brave. You can lose nothing. You'll never see me again. Yeah.
I think because women maybe they go have babies.
No, for the same job. Less for doing the same job. Okay, think about it. She's got bored now. Why, madam? Madam sounds so patronising, isn't it? Why do you think women are paid less for doing the same job? What? From other people telling you? Yeah, you're absolutely right. How honest of you. So you haven't a clue, really, do you? No. And in actual fact, the story is, and this is the thing, you see, I can only tell you what I've heard, and we can discuss that. That makes us never enemies, because no one's going to say, I know this, I know this. All right? They say, well, I do know one thing. Well, I think I do. I've never actually looked up the legislation, but legislatively, you are not allowed to pay someone less than someone else for doing the same job. Who believes that's true? In legislation, in other words, it's against the law. Most people would use that expression, that it's against the law. You believe that's against the law? I think it's against the law. I think if you as an employer and you paid, let's say, a woman less than a man for doing the same job, I think you'd be hung out to dry. If you went to the court, you'd find yourself in serious trouble.
The point is you wouldn't give a childbearing age woman a certain job, obviously.
No, never mind about that.
Well, that's a
I'll get
Who cares about
there.
what they can say?
Yeah, okay, just relax, you're ahead of everything.
Give
Now,
them a
listen.
job. Quite rightly.
The feminists have pushed this.
Yeah.
All right. What they've done, they've said, look, there are women paid less than men for doing the same job, and it's illegal. But you know what? I believe it's true. I believe women are paid less than men for doing the same job. But I also believe that men are paid less than women for doing the same job, and women are paid less than women in the same job, and men are paid less than men for doing the same job. It's all illegal. I also believe people exceed the speed limit, but they're illegal. Okay. But the feminists, because of the way they work, because it's a political ideology working on a thing called critical theory, they'll only look at one side that favours them, and they'll say women are paid less. But actually, in fact, they're not. I'll give you some other evidence that might convince you. It convinced me. Anyone here in business? Anyone here run a business? No. If I was running a business, as a part of a corporation, then when I interview people, the most expensive cost that I have is human resources. Yeah, it costs money you want as less people in your business as possible. When they come along, they want a job. If they came along and I knew I could pay them a certain proportion of them less, let's say women, then I would. And no man would get a job. If women could be paid less than men for the same job, and the firm could get away with it, men would not find a job. It'll be entirely staffed by women from top to bottom, and anyone that got there first would make a fortune and buy up everyone else anyway. So that's lies, isn't it? It can't be true. However, let me explain. Yes.
Quality. Maybe women produce less quality.
No, I'm talking about doing the same job.
Same job, it doesn't mean the same quality.
It does when I'm saying it.
Two bakers.
No, I'm talking about the same job. Same job is what you produce.
They can't do the
I
same
mean, doing
job,
that
can
isn't
they?
a job.
Because
Producing
of
your
children.
baker or whatever it is, whatever you're talking about,
They
is. It's the production that counts. Yeah? And bear this in mind, because I'm going to get back to that. Now, the thing is, what the feminists did what they did was a bit of a naughty, because they've got this trait. It's called lying, and it's something that a lot of
Christians,
well, a lot of
Muslims and
people in
Jews,
politics.
they don't lie in quality.
Yeah,
as well.
politics.
Yeah,
Politics.
Yeah.
Do you think who believes here politicians lie? Does anyone here believe
No,
politicians
no,
lie?
politics
Wait,
is
do you
not
mind? I'm
so.
not asking you. I'm
Oh,
asking
well,
everyone
yeah.
but you. Don't tell. Actually, you're included, but I thought I'd say that just to shut you up for a bit. Now, anyone here? Because I need continuity. I know you understand. I know you're a good bloke. I know you. Anyone here believe that politicians lie? You believe that politicians lie, don't you? How about you? Do you believe that politicians lie? You do, yeah. You're scared. I don't know why everyone stands like this. You know. But yeah, of course, who votes? Does anyone here vote? You vote. So you believe politicians lie. You vote for them. That's cognitive dissonance going on there. That's a bit weird, isn't it? That's dead weird.
all economics.
It's because they lie. It's all economics. Oh, thanks, mate. We retract everything I said. Now listen. What the feminists do, they lie too, because that's political ideology. All right. And what they say, what they've done, they say, well, look, on average, women take less than men. And the reason is they work less than men. This has been researched thoroughly, especially by a guy I always use. His name is, I can never remember his damn name, it'll come to me in a minute. Warren Farrell. Break that. Never remember? No, not anymore. Warren Farrell was chairperson, I think, of National Organisation of Women, very far, not left or right, I don't know what it is, women's feminist movement in the 60s. He was big boy 3 times in that, dedicated feminist. He got fed up with this. He thought, I'm going to go away. He was an academic. I'm going to prove this is right. I'm going to prove women are paid less. And he found out it wasn't true. He changed his mind after that, and he goes around giving talks. The truth is that women actually would prefer they have life choices. And one of their life choices are to have children or not have children, of course, deal and everything else. What happens is that they prefer to spend more time with the family than they do at work.
Exactly.
So they'll take the jobs that give them more free time. There's nothing wrong with this. I admire it, actually. I really do. And certainly I'm sure the same happens with men if they're looking after the children. But feminists don't look at that. Feminists only look at women because they want to make them the victims. It's called victim feminism.
I babysit 20 hours a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my grandchildren.
If that's good, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure lots of people do. Anyway, so, and if you look at the jobs they do, they tend to not, women don't like doing dirty jobs. I can understand that, I don't. Yeah? I spend most of my time under my car at home, funny enough, but it's not a job, it's for fun. Can you believe it? But they don't like that. They don't like risky jobs. Men like risky jobs. I don't know why they do it. But there's more men die on the job, so to speak, than women by far. And it's not because they're all stupid and they're diving off the scaffolding, it's because they more work in that industry. All right? And so if you actually, on average, look at the income, women's will be less than men's. Isn't that acceptable? It's reasonable. It sounds reasonable to me. I don't know if it's true. I'm not Warren Farrell. He has done the research. He has published the papers. I suggest you get hold of it and read the books. I read as many books as I can, but you can't cover everything. It sounds reasonable to me. But the feminists deliberately twist this around so that it looks like women are victims because they need victims. Because once you've got a victim, you can do what they did in Russia years ago. You had the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. That's where they learned this trick. And once you get a set of people, whether it's justified or not, to identify as victims, they'll invent, if you don't present it to them even, an oppressor. Because when you feel oppressed, you feel there must be a reason for that. There must be something causing that. Now, in the 60s, with feminism, this is exactly what they did. Okay, what do you want to question?
I was going to say,
Can you speak up?
You've already explained how it's economic at its roots. So why don't you talk about the system itself that's creating these symptoms to begin with?
I can. I mean, because I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I bear in mind, though.
But the
I bear in mind. I know. Are you talking about the Frankfurt School and all this kind of stuff? Cultural Marxism.
No.
What are you talking about then?
I'm talking about how women are disadvantaged structurally.
No, they don't. I'm stupid.
Yeah, but you've already demonstrated that.
No, I haven't.
Well, but you
How?
can't
How
see
have I?
it.
How have I done that?
You said if you can actually pay a woman less to do a particular job.
No, see, you're a
that is
feminist.
structural.
You're a feminist.
No, I'm talking about
No,
economics.
listen. I explained
If you wanna
how,
stay in business-
if they could pay a subset, we use women because the feminists use women. If they're blacks, if they got immigrants that didn't exist in the country on paper, this is what happens. And they could pay them half the amount they paid a local person because legislatively they must pay them a full wage. They will.
But that's structural.
You know that's
Structural.
true.
Yeah.
Well, if you call it structural.
Well, it is.
But if you could
that's
pay,
the most
and
important
listen,
factor here.
if you could pay any subset, you would. But you can't pay women less if they're local, if they're people that live in this country, for instance, and also other people. But let's take that. You can't. You're not allowed to pay them less. They go to court, and that company will be strung up. It's nothing to do with women. It's to do with someone being paid less than someone else in the same job. The feminists pick women getting paid less than men in the same job. They choose that particular structure in order to push the image that women are oppressed systematically. But they're not, because men are paid less than women for doing the same job. Men are paid less than women. When you're here, I hate going through this rhetoric again. People are paid less than other people for doing the same job, and it's illegal. You turn to the law, and that's it. So that takes away that one. What's more, if they could pay, if legally you could pay women less for doing the same job, there'll be no men employed. Would there? No. Structurally, it's to the woman's advantage because she could get all the jobs. Now, what's wrong with that? Yeah, of course, don't be silly.
not
It
as simple
stands
as
out for
that.
nothing. Oh, not as simple as that. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Of course it isn't, because that doesn't happen. The truth is that it's illegal. Now, what the feminists say is that women actually earn less than men, and they do on average. No, they don't. They're paid less than men. No, they earn less than men on average, sorry. Because their choices, life choices are different from men's, and their instincts are different from men's. Generally speaking, women put children first. That's the way it's been for the past, I reckon, although I wasn't there at the time, a couple of million years. And certainly my cat behaves like that, and I don't see why anyone else shouldn't. Women actually always put the children first. It's instinctive there. Men put their women and children first. They go out, they take risks, do the dirty jobs in order to provide and protect. Because women need protection, because they're the ones that get pregnant, have babies, suckle their babies, and are there for that purpose. That's the way it's been for years. That's the way we've evolved. That's why we've got two different species. It's that coalition between the species that makes us efficient, and that allows us to rise up and live a more comfortable and efficient life. We can then move on to arrange ourselves into our communities. We've got spare time. We can indulge in the arts, all this kind of stuff, all because of the family unit is well taken care of. As a result, we can have education. People have good IQ. They have an understanding of culture and the support of culture, and you have a successful unit. Now, the cultural Marxists come along and they say, no, we're going to say women are equal to men, whatever that means, and therefore they can do anything a man can do, and they can't, and therefore they've completely destroyed the family unit, and as a result, this advantage that we have collapses, and therefore our
So each
culture
according
has
to their
collapsed.
needs.
Sorry?
I say each according to their needs.
What's that mean?
Well, you basically don't tell the guy in a wheelchair to go and paint a house.
You don't tell anyone to do anything. What's the matter with you? What kind of universe
So
do you
why should he
think
be
where people come
disadvantaged
along?
more than another person?
People come along, they tell them what to do. You're in a wheelchair, go up there. Where have you heard this? Don't be ridiculous.
But what I'm demonstrating is that why
You're not
should someone be
demonstrating
more...
anything.
You're not letting me talk. If someone, why
Sorry.
should someone be disadvantaged more than another person
You're
just
not
because
disadvantaged.
just because the person can't do a particular thing?
Someone, hang on a minute. I always find this difficult to get my head around. Someone shouldn't be disadvantaged because they can't do something.
Yeah.
You're good at maths. No, you know where I'm going.
What's your point?
You know my point. That's why you've got to quiet and
No.
shake your head. Are you good at maths?
I'm all right.
All right. Do you think you could make a statistician in a big
No.
company?
You could if you're
See,
trained in it.
see what's happening
Sure.
is
Spend
what's
enough time
happening is here.
learning to do it.
You're therefore disadvantaged by the fact you can't do something. I mean, come on, don't be
So it's
silly.
like a bear telling a shark its knees hurt. The bear
Say
can
again?
tell. It's like a bear telling a shark its knees hurt. The bear is telling the shark it's got a problem, but the shark is like, mate, I've not got knees. So it's like
I'm not saying. Honestly, I'm sorry, but I can't follow it.
again, if a bear told a shark its knees hurt, they're both predators. That's great. However, a bear has knees, a shark doesn't. They're fundamentally different from saying, "Are you good at maths?" No, but you can train in being good at maths. Say a bear telling another bear its knees hurt.
Well, you better use a different example. I don't quite understand.
That's fair.
I don't understand what you're getting at. Listen,
It's
if
because
you
of
go for a job,
inequality.
and then you go for a job, and there's another person goes for that job, and you're better on paper, you present yourself better, you look as if you're better suited in the job than the other person, then the person that's doing the interview is going to start giving you the job. They don't say, "Oh, this person's obviously disadvantaged." That's stupid. Oh, what other disadvantage do you want? What else do you want? Let's take. Let's take something like let's take a builder. A builder's got. You can record me. I'm recording myself, believe it or not. Let's take a builder. Yeah, you've got scaffolding up and ladders up there, and someone comes that's got one leg. What are you going to do?
You're talking within a
Well,
particular
you'd probably give them a
context.
Of course, I'm talking within context. I always talk in context.
Yeah,
Don't
but
expect me
I'm
to talk
talking
out of
about
context.
trying to get more equality.
No, you're not talking about equality. What do you mean? Are you going to say something like women, let's say, are less courageous than men, therefore they should get extra help when asking for a rise? Are you saying that? Because that's what the feminists say.